Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Spunkovite here on behalf of MMOBomb.com, your one-stop shop for free-to-play games. Welcome back to the Free-to-Play Podcast. This is episode 74, and unlike the previous episodes for a while, we actually have a new co-host to introduce to you guys and what have you. Before we do that, I'm just going to go ahead and give you a quick overview of what's in this episode today. We've got some news involving Tera, a new Siege battleground, Firefall getting its final closed beta updates, Aion 4.0 news, 4.0, I can't even say 4.0 correctly, Planetside 2 adding player-driven content, Wargaming potentially having some issues with Microsoft, and of course the new member topic zone. So I hope you guys stick around for all of that. But let's go ahead and introduce our new co-host. Of course, we have Jason Winter. As always, Jason, glad to have you here. I will not forget of you. You are our veteran, our steed.
Like I said, it's been, 2 months now?
Yeah, you are consistent, man. You are one of our most consistent co-hosts, so bravo.
I am consistent and boring, yes.
No. You provide an eloquent, what is the word? Aged viewpoint? I don't know.
Oh, God, vintage.
Vintage, yes, that's a good, like a fine whiskey or something. That is what you provide.
I'm like Super Mario Brothers,
yeah.
Vintage.
But like a shot of vodka, we've got David, otherwise known as X, otherwise known as David R64YT, if you ever watch him on YouTube. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Spunkify.
You're doing great? I'm doing great.
Like a shot of vodka, really?
Yeah, I was thinking of some other kind of drink that's like, after you take it, you're like really pumped.
Why is that your reaction to me?
No, it's like it goes down and it's like, I don't know. What kind of drink would you rather be?
Often.
I compared him to whiskey. You could be vodka. You could be Stella. I mean, Atois. Like, what do you want to be?
I don't care. I just like that. It's like that's like.
You could be a Bud Light, but I think that's like a jab, not an actual compliment. But yeah, David. Okay. Glad to have you, man. David's an old friend of mine. He's been not been on the show, but he's been around and involved in YouTube as myself for quite a long time. And so, David, as you may know, because I've told you before the episode began, we have a sort of ritual or inauguration for all new co-hosts, and that is you go ahead and tell us about your baby steps into the MMO world, what sort of got you started, and what are you playing right now that is MMO based? So go ahead, divulge your life. Tell us your free-to-play gaming / real pay-to-play MMO, because of course free-to-play MMOs haven't been around for forever. So yeah.
Yeah. No, MMOs weren't always free-to-play. They were the first revenue model for MMOs was a monthly fee, usually $9.99, something like that. I don't know what Ultima Online did, but my first MMO experience was EverQuest. And I had such a blast in that game. I was actually really big on Magic the Gathering when I was in my teenage years. And I went to tournaments and things like that. And I was playing in a particular tournament. And I would think I was sitting there, I was playing a match. And I overheard some of the guys that were there that weren't in a game. Either they had finished their round or they were out of the tournament or what have you. I don't know. But somewhere on the other end of the room, there was some conversation going on about ogres and people encountering hill giants and not having time to turn around or run. They just had to like backstep. I remember these stories only in pieces, but they're actually very vivid to me. They're actually very impactful. I remember hearing about all this stuff, and I know that we're talking about a game, but a game that was like that is something I had only previously dreamed of. I had thought about a game where the world would be open-ended and you could make your own way and things like that. I had ideas of a game sort of like that, or wished the game sort of like that existed. And I was big on Warcraft and Magic the Gathering and role-playing games, Diablo, all that kind of stuff. So the fantasy genre was very well embedded within me by this time. I'd read The Hobbit and things like that. So I was very much into this sort of theme. And I heard them over talking about it. And when I finished my match, I went up and I asked one of the older guys there, one of the guys who'd been around the longest, or just was playing in the tournament, he was just an older gent. I asked him about it. What exactly they were talking about, and he just says very nonchalant, like EverQuest, like it wasn't some sort of new revolutionary thing, like it wasn't something big, and it really was. To me, it was hearing news of a game that was actually like that. And when he explained to me that it was massively multiplayer and that the world was colossal, like it would take you 2 hours to walk from town to town, that kind of thing really hit home with me. I had to check it out. I went and searched it immediately. I went and looked it up. I found out as much as I could about it. I read the stories. I read about the classes. I read about the world itself. I read about the races, all that good stuff. And just like any typical nerd in high school years, I went to my typical nerd friends and I told them about it. And we got to playing. Me and one other friend got to playing. I didn't have a computer that could really handle it at the time. I had to upgrade. But I did. I did. I upgraded my graphics card in what was at the time, I wasn't really savvy with computers too much at the time, but I knew I needed something else, something stronger in my PC to actually run it. So I went and got a new graphics card hoping that would be enough, and it was barely enough. I ran that game with so much lag, it was ridiculous, but I had a fantastic time in it, and EverQuest has actually colored every experience I've had in gaming ever since I've played it. It had a real impact on me. Of course, I was in my teenage years. I was really impressionable, and this is the type of game that I've been thinking about. So it's something that actually really hit home hard with me, and it's carried with me ever since those days. And so that is actually my first massively multiplayer game. And as far as games that I'm interested in now, free-to-play games, Planetside 2 is one that I play with some regularity, and I'm really interested in Neverwinter, but I haven't gotten too much into it. I have a video on Neverwinter. It's almost 2 hours. I think it's like an hour and 48 minutes on my channel where I but I do commentate my first experience with it. And that's a game that I really want to get into, but I haven't really had too much time. As far as pay-to-play MMOs, I don't think I'll do that anymore. Yeah. I don't think I want to pay for MMOs anymore. I like the free-to-play model. I think League of Legends has shown that the free-to-play model, revenue model, is one that is sustainable and actually very preferable because it brings in a large audience, and microtransactions are kind of where everyone's going, and I like that. I like being able to support the things that I find good and not support the things that I don't want to pay to try something and then not like it. I don't think that's valid. I don't think that's a good way to go about things. But yeah, those are the two games, Planetside 2 and Neverwinter, that are currently interesting me.
Well, David, I think you, with your story about EverQuest, have encapsulated a large portion of individuals and their initial experiences. Your experience with overhearing about EverQuest is very much like my experience of overhearing about World of Warcraft on a bus to high school, no less. So thank you for that eloquent and quite lengthy introduction. So yeah, EverQuest. I would say, I would chalk that up to being another non-World of Warcraft MMO that started you out, so kudos to you. Jason, he had Lord of the Rings Online. You have EverQuest, which predates World of Warcraft somewhat, and somewhat, yeah, by quite a bit. But you gotta kind of just play it off lightly, as if it wasn't like this big thing before World of Warcraft. But
my first was City of Heroes, by the way.
Oh, sorry, City of Heroes, Lord of the Rings Online, City of Heroes.
That was late.
Yeah. All of them. Jason, I feel like I've wronged you. I am sorry. How dare me say Lord of the Rings, City of Heroes. So
you've wronged me by saying that you heard about World of Warcraft while you were in high school.
I know. It totally dates me. I do apologize for that. But all right, we've got some great sort of topics to talk about today. All of us being MMO buffs / nerds, I guess you could eloquently put us as that. Let's go ahead and discuss this. So, starting with the news, we've got Tera getting a new Siege battleground. Now, Tera, David, of course, recently went free to play from being pay to play. Have you actually played Tera at all, or gotten a chance to sort of dabble with it?
No, Tera did interest me when I first saw it. I liked how it looked as far as its mechanics were concerned, but the fact that it was pay to try wasn't something that I was willing to get into. And by the time it became free to play, I had already moved on to other things. And plus, I don't know, something about that game just doesn't really scream unique to me overall. So it just didn't really grab me overall.
Yeah, the game certainly has a lackluster leveling experience, I would have to say. The questing isn't that great. But for those that have sort of endured through that, there is a new Siege battleground available in the game, or to be available. It's probably going to be available as soon as you guys actually hear this episode. And essentially, the way it will work is you will actually assault a stronghold of sorts. And if any of you are familiar with World of Warcraft, which I'm sure many of you are, by the way, the battleground is called Corsair's Stronghold. It to me is very familiar with the sort of siege-like battleground available in World of Warcraft that came out during Wrath of the Lich King. I actually forget the name of it off the top of my head. But in this,
you're thinking Strand of the Ancients?
Yeah,
Is that
no. There is Strand of the Ancients, but there is also another one that came out after Strand of the Ancients.
Right. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, it was on the Isle. It was like Isle of Conquest, I think it was, or something like that.
Maybe. Yeah.
But
it's been a while.
Yeah, but both of those, you are right with Strand of the Ancients. Both of those used siege vehicles and had defensive positions, etc. And it had one side attacking, one side defending. And the new siege battleground for Tera has tanks, airships, cannons, siege ladders, and essentially one team of pirates assaulting a stronghold in order to try and capture what's called the Anchor Stone. So I'm curious. While we're not, I know us three aren't really big Tera players, it did get me thinking and sort of thinking back to when I did play World of Warcraft and I was playing, Strand of the Ancients and what have you. Are there any sort of multi-stage PvP battlegrounds that you guys have experienced in the MMOs of your choice that you enjoy? Do you actually enjoy multi-stage PvP? What kind of PvP modes are most fun to you guys?
Honestly, that's not something I've done a whole lot in my MMO days because, like I said, I'm not a big WoW fan, so I don't even know what you're talking about in that battleground or whatever. I know I'm such a loser when it comes to my
It's
WoW
okay.
knowledge.
World of Warcraft isn't something to be proud that you played for 2, 3, 4 years or whatever.
7, 8, or whatever.
I disagree.
Sure.
I disagree. I think you should be proud of the time that you spent playing your first MMO or any MMO, really, as long as you did something productive with it. As long as it didn't fully absorb you and as long as it didn't take you away from other things in your life, I think it's perfectly fine to be...
True. I guess I should rephrase that as... don't act like World of Warcraft is the best MMO ever and is better than everything else. I kind of have that elitist attitude that of World of Warcraft trumps everything. That's sort of a way I should have rephrased it. But yes, David, you are correct. I did enjoy my time in World of Warcraft. That is,
yeah.
I'll strike my statement and restate that.
And you've taken your experience from... And now, I know this is not the case for a lot of players because a lot of players do play it recreationally. It's something that they experience in their lives, and then they quit playing it, and then they move on, and that's fine. That's as long as you got your money's worth, and it was your form of entertainment, then that's fine. Some people read books, some people go to movies, some people play massive multiplayer online RPGs, and yours happen to be World of Warcraft. That's perfectly fine. But in your case, and in my case as well, you've taken your experience with World of Warcraft, your years that you've played it, and you've actually made something of it. You've created a YouTube channel. You've got a podcast going and things like that. You've been productive with it. I know that's not the case for everybody, but it doesn't have to be.
Look at David here. He's like being a MMO psychiatrist. He's like, it's okay that you played World of Warcraft. Don't feel bad.
I'm gonna lay down on my couch and just let him.
Tell me about your experiences with MMOs. What do they make you feel like? So, Jason, tell me. You haven't had much experience in PvP.
I haven't had much experience with this kind of PvP, with the kind of not in terms of like a structured battleground, like a whatever it is, 20-on-20 even battle. I think it looks kind of like, just watching the video, it looks kind of like a battle on Planetside 2, storming a base, something like that, or like the World versus World in Guild Wars 2. Mm-hmm. And that sort of thing, that is a lot of fun. It can be. Now, of course, the issue you run into and stuff like that is it can just be a slaughter one way or the other because one side has a lot more people. So I can get why you'd want to do it this way, and it's kind of interesting that I haven't actually played an MMO that's had this kind of gameplay. They haven't really gotten into that. Again, the structured stuff in Guild Wars 2 has a little bit of that, and that has kind of the secondary objectives. One of them is where you actually can storm like the opposing keep and try to kill their lord at the end of it. But yeah, I mean, it looks like it could be really cool. The other thing I wonder about is being attack versus defense. Like, how is it going to seem like one side has the advantage in that?
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that as well, because when I watched the video, it didn't really seem like the defense had very much stuff to work with. Like, the attackers have 3 ways to get into the fortress. They can scale the walls, they can drop down in the base through airships, and they can destroy the front gate with the siege engines. Whereas the defenders, they have access to cannons. That's basically what they have access to that I've seen. You can destroy, I guess, the different siege weaponry like that. But otherwise, they don't really get very much firepower. Now, granted, they're in this giant, stronghold, so that's sort of like their own, ace up their sleeve, if you will. But for me, it's funny, you mentioned Guild Wars 2. I definitely have to say that I after playing Guild Wars 2 Open World, and I was really excited for it, I just think it's too limiting. The technology is too limited right now for that to do well with so many players on the screen. Everybody lags, and you die to like AoE, and it's really hard to sort of focus fire and have any kind of real sense of cohesion. But with 20 on 20, then you really sort of get, more focused battles. And David, I'm curious, since you played EverQuest, which is known for having a lot of open world PvP, what sort of PvP mechanics do you enjoy most in your MMOs?
Well, first I want to touch on that topic we were talking about just a moment ago.
Sure.
How it's like psychiatry of all this stuff. Actually, it's more like philosophy than it is psychiatry or psychology. But anyway, as far as PvP is concerned, and as far as the Tera battleground is concerned, but you asked me about my EverQuest thing. As far as EverQuest is concerned, you chose whether to play on a PvP or a PvE server. And in my experience with PvP in EverQuest, because I would sometimes jump onto a PvP server just because it sounded fun to basically harass and grief other people, because that's what it sounded like those servers were meant for. They tried to put story behind it. They tried to have it to where there were some servers where it was just the evil side versus the good side, so you had evil races and good races, and you couldn't attack those on your side unless there was a certain stipulation. I don't know. There was all kinds of stuff like that. But PvP in EverQuest was very imbalanced. There were some classes that could just decimate you without you even knowing what even happened to you. People could blind you, and blind in this game was significant. It wasn't like your character wanders around a little bit acting blind. Like, your screen goes black in EverQuest. Like, all you have is, if you have the latency meter turned on, that's the only thing you can see. It feels like your monitor turns off, and it's like actual blindness. It's crazy. So, and you had classes that could chain fear, and you had pet classes, which are probably the worst because the pets could root and stun and cause damage over time effects and all kinds of stuff like that. So open world PvP in that game is not really a good measure for how to do PvP in other games, although it was fun. It was fun to jump on and just get to like level 4 or level 8 and then just try to kill lobies. That was cool. That was kind of a little bit of a rush, but it felt like that's what everyone was doing.
So I know you played World of Warcraft because I've seen it on your channel,
right.
At least your earlier videos. And so I'm curious then, with your experience in the open world PvP, and then I know World of Warcraft originally had a lot of open world, but then they started adding in a lot of different battlegrounds for you to play. Did you enjoy battlegrounds with different sort of objective base just as much as you enjoyed open world PvP? Or like, where I'm just kind of curious to know, like, there sort of seems to be like two sets of PvP players, those that don't really like small skirmish PvP and those that much prefer to have, some kind of structure and goals and objectives other than just, like you said, going around killing lobies or just, finding random people out in the world. So which one do you sort of prefer as a MMO player?
I prefer any kind of PvP, and this is a theme in all PvP in any video game. I prefer any kind of PvP where there's a reason to fight. Now, in open world PvP in World of Warcraft, that meant controlling locations for your side where you needed to get to quest objectives. There were quest mobs that you needed to kill. In the early days of World of Warcraft vanilla wasn't fully balanced. There were some classes that were definitely overpowered. The Shaman was probably one, and I played the Shaman. So, I mean, I don't have any regrets about that. That was just tons of fun. It wasn't extremely overpowered. But in any case, you need to have a reason to fight. Being able to do cool things, being able to defeat other players, yeah, there is a certain thrill in defeating somebody. And maybe if you're of a certain mindset where you just want to make somebody's, I don't know, some people who play rogues, it seems like they want to jump in just to cause a bad time. Yeah, just to cause a bad time for other people. They'll harass people and things like that. They'll spam them in chat. They'll do things. And I mentioned rogues specifically because I actually have a rogue named Too Bad For You, whose my specific goal for that rogue was to go in and just, yeah, exactly. Was to just go and really make life horrible for whatever Alliance player comes along my path. They chose to roll Alliance, so that's the kind of thing that they're going to have to face. I don't really play with that kind of mindset anymore. I think that's a waste of time these days. I honestly do. You don't get anything out of it, and kind of snickering to yourself and being like, hee, I'm messing up this guy's day. Oh yeah, I'm really cool because I'm sitting here and kind of stun locking this guy and making it so he doesn't want to play. That's actually not cool. I didn't find it as fun as I thought I would. It may have been fun for a short while, But in any case, you can do that kind of stuff. But like I said, that kind of thing wanes quickly. You don't get anything out of it. You don't get a lot of entertainment out of it. It's not fun for anybody. Even if the battles are perfectly even, if there's not a reason for you to be fighting somebody, then why fight? Why have that there if you're not controlling territory, if you're not controlling resources or something along those lines? If you're not controlling the entrance to a raid zone, I remember Naxxramas in Wrath of the Lich King. That was pretty cool because you had to fly up to the entrance of the portal, and it was like this tiny little room with like 3 entrances.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and if you had Horde and Alliance who were both trying to do that raid at the same time, you're trying to gather the raid. So everyone's gathering by that meeting stone and summoning portals and doing all kinds of stuff. So
I just remember shamans would like shock blast people off of that. They were just drop it and shoot everybody out.
Druids would do it too. I think mages were also doing that kind of thing. So you've got that going on, and that was fun. See, but the point is, you're fighting there because you're trying to control that portal, so your raid can get in, and you can go do whatever you want to do, and then the battle eventually ends whenever one side finally gets inside. So having a reason to fight is extremely important in any kind of PvP, and in Battlegrounds, I think it's a little bit different. Having a reason in open world PvP is the biggest thing. Having some sort of motivation there. But in Battlegrounds of any kind, I love Battlegrounds that are done right. Arathi Basin is done right. Arathi Basin to this day is still fun. I don't think they've changed it very much. I haven't logged into World of Warcraft in, I don't know, maybe a year and a half or longer at this point. But Arathi Basin to this day, if they haven't changed it much, is still very fun because it's a well-done battleground. It's well balanced. It's well designed. The matches don't last too long, and you get a chance to actually just go in and have some fun. Things like Star Wars, the Old Republic have, quote, battlegrounds, unquote, that are like Hutball. I don't know if you guys have experienced that. Hutball is really fun. It's not really a battleground, but it is PvP, and it's like a game. It's like playing football, sort of. You're trying to get your ball to the end zone. You're intercepting. That kind of stuff is fun because it adds new mechanics. And the thrill of victory there is not as paramount as it is to the thrill of playing. As long as playing it is fun, that's incredible. So that's a battleground done right.
Well,
and okay, go on.
I was going to say, speaking of Hutball, we're on the subject sort of different battlegrounds, different sort of PvP elements. I do agree with you. I do feel that open world PvP that has some sort of objective, either by you creating the objective as a player and creating content essentially, or there being objectives placed in there by the developers, is certainly, I think, the most, to me at least, some of the most satisfying PvP. But I do agree that Battleground PvP has its place in creating sort of really condensed versions of that, where they're really focused and they happen in a short amount of time. But you were mentioning Hotball, and that actually gets me into the second article here, which talks about Firefall getting its final closed beta update. Now, I don't know how too familiar you are with Firefall, but it is an open world MMO FPS, and the open beta launch date is July 9th, which is just around the corner, very close. And specifically, the milestone update added 2 new things: a dungeon called Blackwater Anomaly. They call it the first quote-unquote story-based episode, but it is a dungeon. I've seen some videos of it. You do load into a dungeon. But more specifically, it also adds Jetball. So you have Hutball, and then you have Jetball. And Jetball basically works the same, similar to Hutball rather, in that you get a ball and you have to score it into a goal. But with Firefall being a shooter, you hold the ball and you can either shoot it or you can fly through the sort of goal with it in order to score. But when you hold it, you actually can't use any of your abilities. So it's a little bit different than Hutball. You can't really defend yourself. It's a lot more sort of team focused. Because I know in Hutball, you could basically just stun anybody in your way if you had the ball, if you were a good class. And sort of, it still was team focused because you obviously needed your team to do that. But it made it a little bit easier to sort of get out of sticky situations. They've sort of stripped all sort of passive abilities for players and just made it really about team play. And they kind of want this to be sort of like an esport of Firefall. Have you actually played, Jason or David, have either of you gotten a chance to sort of really get into Firefall at all and mess around with the different systems?
I haven't played it a ton. I played it for a couple hours in a beta during the beta a few months ago. But yeah, I mean, this sounds really interesting. It's the way you describe it, I almost think more like Quidditch or something, because you got the flying aspect of it. That's the first thing I thought of when I heard about it.
It's Quidditch with jetpacks, like
Quidditch with
jet boots.
Well, yeah.
They're jet boots. They're on the boots.
Jet boots, yeah. Well, would I rather have jet boots or a broom?
A broom. Yeah, both of those work. Although I kind of thought I don't know, what would you rather have? Jet boots or a magical broom?
I'd rather have jet boots.
I guess in terms of like, modern, trying to keep them hidden and so on, it'd be easier to have the boots. So.
True. I think the boots are pretty badass. And plus it doubles as melting people's faces off in the game whenever you're done, killing them, which is always a nice touch. So...
Yeah, but yeah, I was just going to say, this is, they're really pushing esports over in Firefall, so they need probably a few different types of battlegrounds or instance PvP things. And having something like this that actually looks like a sport, might be a really good move. I remember when they were first talking about Hutball for SWTOR, there was some talk of, they were going to make an esport out of it, and of course they never really did anything with it. But yeah, I know. But yeah, but one of the greatest things they should do, though, and this was again something I thought they should have had from the start with Hutball, if you're gonna have this, you're gonna make it kind of an esportish kind of thing, is give it stats like a real sport. Let you track your goals scored, your assists, your takedowns, something like that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that that's sort of a huge thing with sports, and even esports in general. If you look at popular esports, if you take like League of Legends or Dota 2, League of Legends, I know specifically, you can track how many kills that you've got, how many minions you've done, and then you can track each each match on a per match basis to see exactly what you've done there. Although I don't know, you can track those stats individually up to like however many games in the past that you can look at those. But yeah, that's sort of a key component because it allows you to sort of compare yourself to the pros and see what areas you can improve. And I'm kind of curious. They talked about Jetball being a esports, but they also talked about some of the other modes being esports as well. Do you think that they can be successful having multiple modes as esport viable, or they should focus on, say, for example, Jetball as the esport quote-unquote mode for play in Firefall? David,
I don't think you should design something to be an esport. Even League of Legends, which is honestly the premier esport, to be honest. It's like the top tier esport right now. As much as StarCraft 2 fans hate that, it's true. League of Legends is the most popular esport right now. And I'm a fan of both games, so there's that. But even League of Legends, I'm not 100% certain, and I don't have any insider information on this, although I do know a few people at Riot. I don't think that League of Legends was ever designed, I don't think they started out wanting the game to be an esport with tournaments and things like that. Maybe they did, I don't know. But it seems to me that when it first started out, it was just to make, their goal was just to make the game fun. They just wanted something that was like Defense of the Ancients, and so they made League of Legends. It was like a simplified Defense of the Ancients, and it's that simplified aspect that has actually made League of Legends more popular than even Dota 2.
Well, I would have to say, because I actually played League of Legends from the beta, and from what I gathered from the devs back then, they always knew that Defense of the Ancients at the time was very competitive. There was already an esports scene behind that, so they definitely knew that was a pathway for them to go. And so they kind of just focused on making their version of it, and I think they kind of just figured that if it became popular, the esports sort of culture would go along with that. And for Firefall, you kind of don't have that already sort of pre-established mentality of this game already has like an esports following, or this genre already has an esports following. Because if you think about it, what other jetpack MMO FPS has esports? I can't think. Like, we have Tribes, right? There's Tribes that has esports, but Tribes isn't an open world FPS, and Tribes doesn't have quite the customization options and the same gameplay style as Firefall. Although some of the original Tribes developers are working on Firefall, so you do have that.
The closest thing to it is Planetside 2, which is trying to be an esport. But again, it seems like most things that try to be an esport is actually failing at being an esport. Planetside 2 is trying to get into MLG. They're trying to garner a large audience, but so far, Planetside 2 itself has not gained the traction that Sony obviously wanted it to gain. You look at most other MLG streams, they're sitting in the tens of thousands of views. You look at something like Planetside 2, you got 500, and you can tell that Planetside 2 currently has a very niche audience because it panders to a very niche kind of player. It's not very easy to get into. The game is difficult to start. So building it to be an esport from the ground up is something that didn't really work for them, or hasn't really worked so far. And I don't think that's a permanent state. I think they can change that. I think there are a lot of things getting added to Planetside 2 that could help that. But in Firefall's case, I think just like with everything else, like for example, World of Warcraft wanted arenas to be like an esport. That hasn't happened. We had Planetside 2 trying to do the esport thing. We had Hutball. Didn't you say Hutball? Or what did you say? Yeah, Hutball.
Yeah, some very lightly talked about that.
Yeah, Hutball was something that they discussed making an esport. That actually hasn't happened. That was another example that I have that wanted to be an esport, but actually never really came to fruition. There are so many things that want to be esports that they try to design to be an esport, and it just never gains the traction because you need an audience who follows along with that methodology. And the thing about it is, in order to have an audience to make your game an esport, because let's face it, your game is not an esport if you don't have an audience. In order to have an audience, your game must first be popular, and for your game to first be popular, your game must first be properly marketed and fun. You need all of those things. An esport needs a ton of different aspects in order for it to actually be an esport. And as Jason mentioned, you need to be able to track stats. Tracking stats is a very important thing. StarCraft 2 pros, you can go to Liquidpedia and or even some other wikis and look at the stats of any particular professional player. You can see their win-loss records. You can see how well they do on certain maps against certain races. You can see where they currently are stationed geographically. You can see all kinds of stuff. You can see all of their stats. It's almost like having baseball cards. And I think that might actually be something cool. Jason actually just gave me that idea. I think that might actually be something cool for any esports scene. Like for League of Legends teams, you could have like League of Legends cards, I don't know, something like that, or StarCraft 2 player cards, whatever. That sounds pretty cool. But tracking stats...
There are Dota 2 player cards. I got one today when I played Dota 2. No joke.
See? That's freaking amazing.
It was a Dota 2 player, his team, and it was a card reward for finishing a match in Dota 2.
See, it's cool. I mean, it sounds like a fun idea. I don't think it'll actually work in practice. I think it sounds a little bit silly. I think we're at an age where we're beyond that now. And I don't mean an age as in like personal age. I mean like in an era that's sort of beyond that kind of thing now. I mean, you're not going to go to your convenience store and buy a pack of Big League Chew and pull out a Jadong card. You know, you're not gonna get that. And if you did, that would number one be really awesome, like one of those really niche items, or it would really suck. So you can go either way with that. So I don't think you're gonna see a lot of that kind of thing.
I guess we'll have to say we'll see if it'll be an esport. I definitely think games that provide the environment and the opportunity for players who really enjoy it to turn into an esport. Kudos to them, But I definitely don't think you should, like you said, David, start out with the mentality that you will be an esport, because it's one of those things you just got to kind of see how the game progresses, how players accept it, and whether they view it as something serious or not. So you've got the Jet Ball, you've got the new story-based episode Blackwater Anomaly, which is an instance dungeon. I'm a little bummed that it is instance. I do like the fact that a lot of the content in Firefall is open world. And of course, I think a lot of people who have looked at Firefall footage and the trailers, and remember the trailer with the giant sort of three-legged creature attacking the city. So I think a lot of people who are looking forward to the PvE content of the game, not so much looking forward to dungeon-based, but more open-world stuff. So hopefully those just are used to drive the story narrative, which is what it is, story-based episode. And there aren't really the main sort of group PvE content. That's what I'm hoping for. But we'll find out starting on July 9th. So we'll see where that game heads. I personally will be playing it. I've been playing it since the early parts of the closed beta, and I will be dipping in and out of it in the future just to see where it's headed, because I do think it does have potential, and there aren't that many MMO FPSs. I mean, Planetside 2 and Firefall really are the only two major ones, and Planetside 2 is PvP focused. So, going on to our next article here, we've got to pick up the pace just a bit. We've got Aion 4.0 update hitting NA servers. And I think calling it an update is a little bit selling it short. It's practically an expansion.
Oh.
Like, I don't even know why they called it an update. I think it would have served them much better just to call it an expansion itself.
From what I've read, they released a PDF with all the changes.
Yeah, it's a huge PDF with a bunch of images, because we all know reading with images makes it so much easier. Two new classes, a bard-type class and a gunslinger ranged class. Increased level cap to 65, new skills for all the classes, of course. 2 new zones. I think this is pretty credible itself. 11 new instances. 11? Like, I'm happy when they add 4 instances in an expansion or a patch, but 11, that's pretty incredible. 3 new fortresses and 6 garrisons for PvP players. Of course, not forgetting those who enjoy killing other players instead of killing monsters. And there's, of course, UI updates and what have you as well. So, have any of you actually played Aion to any extent? It's
I played
okay
it
if
when
you haven't.
I played it when it first came out. I got it and played it for about a month and really was pretty disappointed in it. It didn't do it for me. You got to a certain point and you just ran out of quests. You had to go grind mobs to do stuff. Yeah, that was a big issue they had early on.
I will say they have fixed that.
Yeah, they have fixed that.
They did balance that out.
I actually did jump back in, but then I remember that you don't actually get to fly anywhere. That was the other thing that really bugged me about it, was how that was all the press and everything was about getting wings and being able to fly, and you only get to do it in a little small area right around that main city. So a lot of people really do like it, though. It didn't work for me, and it's really great to see all the stuff they've done since they've taken it free to play, and they really call it what it was, a totally free or 100% free or whatever they call it. And it's one of the few free-to-play games I really haven't heard major complaints about. No one talking about some pay-to-win aspect or how they restrict this, that, or the other thing. It really seems like they've... I don't know exactly how bad it was doing, before they made it. It seemed like it was still doing okay even for being a pay-to-play. But it's something that they've definitely given a new life to and given a new relevance to since going free-to-play. And yeah, this update sounds just huge.
I haven't had any experience with Aion. A large update like this doesn't really affect me much. I haven't read anything about it. Aion's a fairly old game, isn't it?
2009. It's not
Okay, well that's kind of old in gaming years, honestly.
It's a couple years before Rift.
4 years.
It's not ancient, but
who plays games that old?
Well, some people want to play the latest and greatest at all times, and as MMOs keep coming out,
it is still beautiful for being 4 years old. It's still gorgeous.
It does. I mean, even when it came out, it looked like a especially when it came out, it was a gorgeous game, and it still is a gorgeous game. But I don't know. It's just not one of the things that really affects me much. So I'll just go ahead and I'll pass on that one.
You can pass. You can do whatever you want. I will drop this little bit of knowledge for you. So the enemy that was previous to the 4.0 update, Lord Tiamat or whatever she was called, she was usurped by a new individual, new baddie, which is called Baritra, which, here's a little factual knowledge that was imparted to me by the nice MMOBomb members. Baritra's lover was killed by the previous Lord Tiamat, and the lover was a male, so it actually had some male-on-male dragon action going on in the MMORPG.
Well, it is Pride Weekend.
So
there you go.
Yeah, it did, right? It did have Pride Weekend. That's right. Aion is a pro homosexual, gay, bi, lesbian, etc.
Although I can't get over the name of that guy, and I'm just going to call him Burrito from now on.
Burrito. Lord Burrito.
Well, one of the reasons I'm laughing, I'm kind of reminded of there's this movie with Will Ferrell. I think it's Starsky and Hutch. I think it's that. Have you guys ever seen that?
Starsky and Hutch. I don't think Will Ferrell's in Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah, I think he is as a prisoner. I mean, like one of the newer ones with Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller.
Oh yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I don't remember him being in it though.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's Will Ferrell. He's a prisoner, and they go. I don't know if this is spoilers, but this is an old enough movie. But anyway, he's a prisoner, and they go talk. They need to go talk to him, and in order for him to give them information, he asks them to do something pretty weird. And apparently, the guy's into dragons.
Really?
That kind of into dragons. And, I don't know, that just kind of made me laugh because that was a particularly funny scene. So when you mentioned that, it kind of...
That's a really specific, you man, that is pretty specific that you're like, oh, we happen to be talking about gay dragons. I know something that exactly goes with that.
Well, I mean, that's the only other time that topic has ever really come up, in that movie. So, I mean, I have nothing else to base that on.
Well, hey, if that's going to be your contribution for this article, it is a good one. So I will give you that.
My contribution for this article is go see that movie, because it's funny otherwise.
All right. Now, it's funny. I do want to touch on one thing that you can add probably whether you played it or not, and that is the fact that the EU Gameforge version, Gameforge being the publisher, the patch actually won't hit their servers till August. Now, I'm not really sure why. I don't know if they have more localization to do than NCSoft, who is publishing the NA version. But I honestly, I don't see a reason why players should play on the GameForge version, other than the fact that you maybe have terrible latency if you play on the NA. But from what I've heard, it's not that bad. And the EU GameForge version actually has severe okay, they're not severe. There are limitations. You still can go through all the content, etc., but you're limited in your chat, your trade, your mail, etc., versus the NCSoft version, which is completely free to play, no limitations in those areas whatsoever. So I'm just kind of like, why would you even play the GameForge version when A, the content's not out yet, and B, you can just log into the NA version sans any kind of restriction or localization, etc., and play to your heart's content. So I think that's just a little bit disappointing, I'd have to say, because I'm sure there's people who want to actually play on the EU version for better latency.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just sort of thing you don't even realize when you go to sign up. If you're in Europe, you just go for the EU version. You don't think about it, and you don't realize until later, how awful it is.
Yeah, I think that's really the thing is, it looks almost identical when you go to sign up. Like the pages are almost identical. You can't really tell. They both say that they're completely free to play, and it's only if you dig around that you actually can kind of see the limitations on the GameForge version. So I guess the best thing you can do is sort of just spread the word for those that are interested in Aion to try the NCSoft version and not the GameForge version. No offense to GameForge, you gotta up your game a little bit.
No, we mean offense.
We mean offense. We mean great offense, actually. Sorry, Jason. I sometimes as a host I don't want to just like walk up to publishers and gut them, but yeah, you are true. This GameForge, you're doing a no. Come on. Got to fix this. All right. So, moving on, we have a big topic to talk about. This is something that I know everybody can contribute. We're all big Planetside 2 fans. We play it occasionally. We're big Planetside 2 fans, but we play it occasionally. Planetside 2 is going to be adding player-driven content. Now, first of all, before we actually get into this, I want to ask you a legitimate question because I'm not sure myself. Do you consider Planetside 2 a sandbox MMO or just an open world FPS?
Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of how I've been working on like this whole complex way of defining what is an MMO.
You have an algorithm?
I haven't perfected it yet, so that's why I'm still kind of iffy on it. I mean, I guess it certainly is, and this is always the word that I always hate when I try to define this sort of thing, but it certainly is massive. If it were like a typical RPG, you'd have no problem calling it an MMO because it's got a lot of people. You're always open world, doing random stuff all over the place. If it was a big PvE thing, you'd say sure, it's an MMO. So I guess and it does have like the progression aspect that you kind of associate also with RPGs. So it just doesn't have NPCs and doesn't have quests, it doesn't have raids, in that sense. But I think apart from that, you still have to call it an MMO FPS.
True.
Yeah, it's an MMO. It's kind of unique. It was really unique when Planetside 1 originally hit the scene. That's something like, wow, this is freaking crazy. Massively multiplayer, online first-person shooter. That's like never been done before, and it was absolutely amazing. And from that moment, from when Planetside 1 first came out, it kind of established itself as its own genre. MMO FPS and Planetside were synonymous. Now, of course, you've got other MMO FPS type games. So I think Planetside pretty much still stands as its own genre. I wouldn't call it sandbox because while you are typically free to do what you want to do, you're still in an FPS. You're not creating anything. You're not making your own type of fun. The fun is very much laid out for you. You go here and you have fun in whatever particular way that you want to, as long as you're shooting at people and taking objectives and things like that. That's how you typically do that sort of thing. And like in any MMO, you can just go on massive flash races with your outfit or whatever. Sure, you can do that kind of stuff. So I guess it's got sort of sandboxy.
How do you do flash races in other MMOs? You take off all your clothes and run around with people? So,
I don't know how guilds handle themselves in other MMOs and do that. Maybe they do that kind of thing, but just like
you said flash race, so I was like,
okay,
what?
That's pretty specific, I know. But like just like in other MMOs, you can do other things, extracurricular things, sure, but they're fairly limited in what kind of thing that you can do in Planetside 2. So I wouldn't really call it sandbox.
I would call it more of a sandbox because it's the fact that you don't have, like I said, you don't have quests, you don't have direct things. It's certainly not a theme park. It's not telling you to go to this and to this and to this. If you want to go to the fight, you can. If you want, don't want, if you want to go right, yeah, you want to go race your flashes, go right ahead. So,
well, is that sandbox or is that open world? What's the difference?
See, I think this is where, and I'll step in here a second.
Yep.
This is exactly where sort of this update comes into play, because this I do agree. Sort of it right now in Planetside 2's current state, it borderline is a sandbox and it borderline is an MMOFPS. There is no questing per se or zone to zone to zone, but at the same time there is a clear directive of, or the only directive of, go kill or go transport or go be a part of this fight and do that in certain areas. Yes, you can choose which areas you can do that in, you can choose how you approach those areas, but it's still mainly focused on shooting other people. Versus another MMORPG, I'll use EVE Online mainly because I play it, and it's also a really good example of a sandbox MMO. When EVE Online first came out, it was primarily just mining. Like, that's what you did. You mined. And back then, you couldn't say, I guess you could say, EVE Online is not a sandbox MMO. Yes, you can do a couple other things, but it is primarily about mining. And I think the thing with most sandbox MMO type games is, as things are added, as new avenues and new types of content are added, your ability to do more than just what the overall narrative of the game is sort of starts coming into play. So with the Planetside 2 update coming in August, where players actually get to create their own missions and spawn these missions for their entire empire, which anybody can queue up for and use as sort of like a directive, that does start creating player-driven content, because a player can say, I really want to go and focus on attacking this area. Yes, that's sort of the prime objective, but now they can say, I want to bring in air, so I'm going to have an air type, mission where people get a bonus experience for bringing in scythes or galaxy drops, etc., and doing this. And so everybody gets these bonuses to their experience and whatnot by doing that style of play, and taking quests that help that area with whatever they need. And it's a small start. It's not exactly, plopping down a base and defending a base, which is something that they do want to add at some point. But it is, I think, baby steps towards what would actually create what we would consider a fully fleshed out sandbox MMORPG experience.
I think in talking about that, you made a very important distinction between sandbox MMOs and non-sandbox MMOs, and that is, you mentioned that your ability to do more than what the narrative of the game directs you to do is what defines a sandbox MMO. Like EVE Online has, actually EVE Online doesn't really have a narrative.
It doesn't have a narrative. That's like the
players
a
create the
pinnacle
narrative.
That's the pinnacle of sandbox.
Exactly. And Planetside has it. Or Planetside 2 has it to where, sure, you can choose where you want to go to have the fun that you're going to have, but you're still going to have fun the way that the game wants you to have fun. You're still playing the game the way that the game wants you to play it. So being able to choose where you go, to me, more says open world than sandbox. Whereas adding things like missions sounds, first of all, incredibly awesome. I would love to. That gives people something to do as soon as you sign in. Normally, whenever you sign into Planetside 2, you open up the map, you find a battle, you go there. Whichever one you think is you do the best at. You look at player numbers and like how many enemies are there, how many allies are there, and you try and see whether you should go there in a vehicle or what have you. Sure, you have those choices. But now you're going to be able to sign in and do that, or you can look at what missions are available and say, oh, and like for me, for example, this one, if this mission is calling for a Reaver bombing, I'll be like, I can do that. I would love to do that. So I would take that mission, and then I would go. And now I would have a purpose in going to that particular place. I'm not going there to find out what I can do once I get there. I know what I'm doing. From the moment I accept that mission and run over to get in my Reaver, I know what my goal is. I have a purpose heading to that location. So these missions, while they may seem like something like a baby step toward becoming a more sandbox MMO, or a baby step toward becoming something that people can do more of what they want in, it's actually still fairly significant. And I actually can't wait to experience this.
Jason?
I'm sorry, what was the question again? It's been a while.
I'm just one. I know you're under the influence of medication. It's only Advil, or it's nothing like cough syrup or something like that.
Yeah.
I was curious to know, if you feel like updates like this push the MMO into a sandbox sort of territory, and if this is really something that would drive more players to play and engage in the game. Because when I posted this article on MMOBomb, there was actually a lot of response of people being very unhappy with Planetside 2 and Sony Online. They feel like that they're kind of not putting their eggs where they should. Yeah, they're adding these new features and new weapons and what have you, but there's still an overall large complaint from people about performance and just, from Sony not, addressing that particularly. And then also there's people talking about camping and what have you, but I think that's like a separate issue. So I'm curious to know, like, is the addition of this sort of a right step? Is it something that they should add, or should they be sort of really addressing other more sort of, I guess, ground level issues with the game or progression in the game, based on performance or what have you?
Well, if we're talking about like performance, I mean, that's something that a completely different bunch of people do at the company. The guy, Matt Higbee and those guys aren't figuring out how to optimize a performance. That's more for I don't know what you should call them exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Systems programmers or whatever. No, but I understand what you're saying. I don't think it's a bad thing for them to be doing. I think they have to still try to improve and to advance the gameplay, the actual gameplay part of it, because the people who are playing it and who do like it, they still want to see more new and different things to do, and that's what this does. Now, the part about it that I get a little worried about is like you give the great example of, okay, my commander says we need a bunch of Reavers to bomb, or a bunch of Liberators, say, to bomb this place. I'm going to feel then like I'm sort of compelled, if I want to get the best experience points, I'm compelled to get a Liberator and go over there. If I'm some guy on the ground, I feel like I'm not doing as well as I could be. I'm not fulfilling myself.
They actually touched on that. If you read the missions, the mission examples that they gave, for example, deployment location, right? So
Sure.
There's a large increased experience to deployment bonuses. So obviously if you drive a Sunder or something like that, you get experience bonuses. But there is also experience bonus to people who repair those types of vehicles. Mm-hmm. So they sort of combine things. And I guess it would be the same for airstrike locations. XP bonus to ground kill assist while in aircraft at this location. Greatly increased experience bonus for Sunderer kills. So it is basically, I see what they're doing, where they're kind of trying to give players who are in the air and on the ground, like, for example, let's say you were driving a Sunderer, you have this mission, your Sunderer blows up. You still have this mission. Well, now you can go and you can try to repair other Sunderers. It kind of gives you multiple sort of outlets. But I do see that's only sort of like a small addition to the mission and not necessarily like the overall. And I'm kind of curious, like, what if the mission gives you this experience like ongoing, like you're always on this mission, or if the mission has like a completion, and then once it's completed, you get like this whole sort of cache of experience bonus and what have you, and then you can go choose a new mission. That they haven't really made that clear, and I think that's what will define, Jason, whether or not it feels like a player is compelled, if they want to stick with a particular group, and that is the mission in that area, if they feel compelled to do that particular
I suppose so, but yeah, I mean, even when you and I'm looking at the post and agreeing with you to some extent, but even if I look at that thing and I see, okay, there's these, 3 things or these 5 things that are the things that are going to give me bonus XP. Again, I'm going to kind of feel like, let's see, I don't see healing on there, so I'm not going to play a medic. It's like I feel like I would still want to get an engineer so I can repair stuff or drive my Sunder or whatever. But if I want to drive a tank, I don't get bonuses for that. I don't get bonuses for driving a Sunder. So, again, I'm sure they'll figure out a way to make it so that it is balanced and it is reasonable, that you don't feel compelled into doing things. But and I know it's a bonus. It's not like I don't get any more XP for driving my tank when there's a Sunder mission going on. But you know how MMO gamers are. We want the most efficient, the most quick way to get the experience points.
Yeah.
So I'll still feel like I should be doing this other thing when I'm doing this instead.
Well, yeah, I can see that. I can see that being a problem. There are those who want to fully 100% maximize their playtime and get as much experience points and as much BR and as many cert points as they can in their playtime. That would be interesting to look at. It depends on the implementation. because that could actually skew things a bit. Like right now you have Zergs running around trying to take over a bunch of bases and things like that, and that's basically the best way to get your experience, and hopefully you can get to an alert while doing it. And so that's right now is how you do things. But if a player logs in and they're the type of player who wants to min-max, and they have all these different missions available to them, that player is going to opt for whatever mission is going to give them the highest reward. Now, this, of course, this is also assuming that the player is not part of an outfit and the outfit is not currently running ops. So I don't know. There's a whole bunch of different factors that come into play on that, and it depends on Sony's implementation of this new bit.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see. I would definitely understand if, like, for example, air missions gave more experience than ground missions, because in the air you typically have less to shoot at than you do on the ground, just in general, unless you're like in a really heavily air area. And plus, if you get shot down, then you're kind of nerfed in that sense. You don't get to really take full advantage of that. Versus on the ground, you respawn and immediately can start shooting other people. So we'll have to see exactly how these missions pan out. Obviously, they still have a little over a month to go before the release of this new patch, and I think we had a really great discussion of whether or not Planetside 2 is an MMO FPS or a sandbox experience. All right, so for a final little quick news little article to talk about before member topics, this deals with Wargaming. We've sort of talked about them quite a lot in the past, but really quickly, I just want to touch on the fact that they are not happy with Microsoft and their Xbox Live Gold subscription. So,
well, who is?
I know, like, join the club, But they're actually, it kind of surprised me. They were pretty, or I should say, it wasn't they, but it was the CEO, whose name is Victor, and whose last name is, I haven't written it down in front of me. Victor's,
Kisley.
Yes.
Victor Kisley.
Kisley, exactly. I've actually met this guy. I can't believe I can't remember his last name. So Victor, he was talking to Game Industry Biz, and he basically said that he was very unhappy that Microsoft was unwilling to budge about the Gold Live membership, and he would much rather have the 30 or 40 extra silver members that play World of War Tanks on the Xbox, instead of just limiting it to the Gold members and then not making it truly free to play. Now, that's just sort of part of the argument. He's also sort of upset that Microsoft only right now requires credit cards as a form of payment and not SMS, which is, to him, a suicide for free-to-play. So he has all these sort of, like, hesitations. And it kind of just makes me think, like, if you knew all this going in, was it that much cash? Was it that much money that you just couldn't say no to Microsoft and be like, yeah, I have to put this on the Xbox? Don't get me wrong. This isn't anything about whether or not World of Tanks is good on the Xbox. I played it at E3, and it seemed like your World of Tanks experience. It was fluid. The controls were tight. They had no problems with gameplay. This comes down completely to, I guess, infrastructure. Who does this really fall on? Is this kind of like, this is what you've signed up for, Wargaming, deal with it? Or is this something that, kind of falls on both companies as like, you should, have expected this, and you should be changing your policies because this is where free-to-play is headed, etc. What do you guys think?
This is Victor being Victor.
Yeah, it is. It's a
Pretty
Russian guy being a Russian.
Belarus, actually. Remember, he's from Belarus.
Belarus. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, what? It's not surprising that, I mean, he's probably not the only one who's tried to bring a free-to-play game to Xbox 360. And there was that CEO of some other company. I remember we showed the tweet a couple weeks ago. But anyway, it's just odd that he's coming so public with it, and I'm sure that he sees, again, when you first started with it, he was like, okay, I can get to World Tanks on the 360, and 360 has a lot of players. Let me check with them. Oh, it's going to require gold. Oh, I'm going to not get this many people. I'm not going to get this many people. But it's still going to be quite a bit of people. I mean, Xbox Live Gold, I don't know how many people they have, but...
They have... Okay, so I did actually looked up the numbers for this.
Research. Oh, gosh.
I did the research for it. So the Xbox Live Gold membership, it has more players than Xbox Silver. So out of the 77 million units sold, this is in April, the gold membership was cited at 46 million. So there's a large portion of all the Xbox users do have gold. So it's not like it's only a smaller portion, but you're still missing out on the 31 million or so Xbox Silver users that are notably probably more likely to play free-to-play games because of the fact that, they're obviously not paying for Xbox, Live. But then again, you may think that those silver members, they may not even have Xbox connected to the internet, because if
Sure.
they're not, if you look at how many number of gold members there are, that gives you a pretty good idea that this console is mainly going to be online a large portion of the time, if over 50% of your audience is online, with the gold memberships. But it is still a large portion of people not connected and not playing World of Tanks online.
Well, still, 46 million isn't nothing. And
No, no.
If he's been given the opportunity to introduce his game to possibly 46 million people, he'd be crazy not to do it. So he would like to get those other 31 million. I think he understands free to play better than just about anybody in the world probably, and I think he wants to. I think he really does want to work with Microsoft and try to help them to try and figure out how this works and how you can do it without seeming like, raging a-holes, basically, which is kind of how Microsoft has been on this whole topic.
Have they been? I mean, okay, this is all news to me. This is my first time hearing about it. But from my understanding is that he signed up for this. He wanted to put World of Tanks on Xbox Live. And Microsoft said, we'll do it. And we'll make it only available to our Live Gold subscribers. And it sounds like this guy's like, okay. And now he's like, wait, actually, now that I've signed up for this, I'd like to change the rules. Is that what's going on?
Kinda.
He's not trying to change the reason. He's not going to say he's not going to back out of the contract or anything, but he would like to give Microsoft the notion that this is not the best way to go.
Well, I know, but he signed up for it first, right? I mean, he knew all this stuff going in.
Oh, we don't know who approached who first. Like, I haven't actually researched and found if Microsoft approached World of Tanks first or if World of Tanks approached Microsoft first.
Okay, it doesn't matter who approached who.
Yeah.
When he got into this, he knew what the stipulations were. Is this correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they most undoubtedly went through and hashed it all out. But it's sort of obvious that people are going to ask post the announcement whether or not he's happy about it. So this may have been, his best option, what he was able to do, because Microsoft was unwilling to budge. And now after the fact, he's sort of just voicing the fact that, couldn't really get them to change on this. Obviously, we would rather them have this available, but what can you do, kind of thing.
Oh,
like we said, it's Victor being Victor.
Yeah,
I get it. No, I mean, yeah, that's fine. I get it. Like, he signed up for it because that's all he really could get from Microsoft. Now that he signed up for it, people are asking about it after the fact, and he's like, okay, well, actually, I can't get it. I can't get it for the silver subscribers. I can only get it for the gold subscribers, and I'm not happy about it, but that's how it is. So that's essentially what the situation is.
Yeah, it's essentially, and I mean, to me, like, going forward, I would definitely think that Microsoft in the future should look into allowing non-subscription players who play free-to-play games. But it's become such a staple for Xbox to have gold membership to play online. And in fact, barring free-to-play for other buy-to-play games for PlayStation 4, that it too will require a subscription, unlike the PS3, which did not require a subscription, although it will be less. It will be only $5. And so I definitely think that in the console mentality, and he touches on this, the console mentality, a console player mentality, is different from the PC gamer mentality, where we pay for internet and we just expect to be able to play online unless it's an MMORPG with pay-to-play, versus consoles who are like, I'm used to paying $15 a month. This game is free to play. It just means that I don't have to buy it, but I can still play it online, kind of thing. So we'll see exactly how this pans out in the long run. Obviously not everybody's going to go out and buy a PC just to play World of Tanks. So if they already have Xbox Live Gold and they already have an Xbox, obviously, then, it's just kind of like a freebie for them. And I don't really think it's something that is meant for people who did not already intend to play online on the Xbox, kind of thing. So
I don't know where to get on that one.
It's kind of like the what did you expect Wargaming, and on the same thing, it's Microsoft. You should change things for the future, just to be nice to gamers for once, right? Although I will say Microsoft was good. They did remove the update payment requirement, so that's one thing that I know Wargaming had an issue with, is that previously Microsoft charged per update for developers to push to games. That's why the Team Fortress 2 version the Xbox 360 does not have any of the content that the new version does because of the fact that Valve was unwilling to pay per update.
I feel like, and this is more of an overarching thing, I feel like Microsoft, based on just some of the decisions they've made recently with Xbox One, with Windows 8 and 8.1, with this Xbox Live Gold thing, and with some of the things that they've done with their exclusive games like Halo and stuff like that, I feel like Microsoft is kind of operating on the same sort of principles that they were operating on in 2006, and I feel like they haven't caught up. I think they're doing things not really wrong. I think they're just very slow I think they're out of touch with the gaming community as a whole. I really do. But then again, although I do own some consoles, I don't have any or many. I don't know. I may have one somewhere hooked up. So I don't really do too much console gaming, although I'm not exclusively a PC gamer. I think games are games, and I think people should play them however they can get them, however they want to get them. It's perfectly fine either way. But consoles aren't something I've necessarily been in touch with very much recently. It still seems to me that Microsoft doesn't really seem to be in touch with the gaming community as a whole recently.
I'd have to say that Microsoft, they're not really good at hiding the fact that they want money. Like that's probably like the easiest way to put it. Like
But
PlayStation obviously wants money, but they hide it a little bit better by giving more incentives and making it much more attractive for players to want to purchase things.
I disagree that they're hiding it. I think everyone in this day and age knows that the gaming business is a business.
Everybody knows that, but people don't want to have it thrust in their face. Like.
No, but of course they don't. And Sony doesn't.
Last week was matter in your mouth. This week it's thrust in your face.
Yeah, this week it's thrust in your face. They don't want it just dangled right in their face that they have to pay. Okay. Yeah.
But that's the thing. Microsoft wants money, and I think they're going about it in the least efficient way, or one of the less efficient ways, than conforming to what's going on in the gaming scene right now. Gamers tell you what they want via tweets and blog posts and videos and all kinds of stuff. There's so many different ways to get information if you are Microsoft or any kind of gaming dev or developer or publisher. There's so many different ways to get information from the community about what we want as gamers. And it doesn't seem like they're listening to any of it. And not only do we tell you verbally in videos or in writing in some fashion, but we also tell you through the numbers that your games are selling and that other games are selling and other consoles and things like that. And I don't think that they're listening to a lot of that free-to-play things.
They listened recently when they got rid of the fact that the Xbox One will no longer have to be online all the time.
Here's the thing. Yes, they listened then whenever
everybody screamed loudly at once.
Wait, I'm going to use your phrasing here. They listened then when it was thrust in their face.
Yes.
But the fact that the Xbox One was was announced with all of these glaring flaws shows how out of touch they actually are. They thought that they could announce these things and we'd be excited about stuff like that. That's just not the case. They don't know what's actually going on over there. And I think by doing things like making World of Tanks actually free to play, they'll end up making more money than doing this by just limiting it to the gold members and stuff like that.
Hopefully Microsoft sees World of Tanks as a success on the Xbox 360, which will give them an inkling like, hey, if this is so much of a success with Xbox Live, gold membership, maybe we should make free-to-play games available on Silver. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that this actually paves the way for a more broader, expansion of the free-to-play, because I think healthy competition between, consoles in the free-to-play market is always a nice thing because it means it's better for gamers, it's better for everybody. So having more options is always a good thing, and I really think that Microsoft just needs to calm down and watch and see how it does, and hopefully it does well so that gives them more leeway so that they can say, yes, we can get rid of this requirement so everybody that has free-to-play or wants to play free-to-play on the Xbox can do so without a subscription. But that is going to have to wrap up our topics there. We got to move on here. We've got some great discussion so far, but we're going to actually get to our new topic, our new section rather, that we mentioned last week episode. My English is becoming stutter apparently, which is member topics. So member topics, of course, is where you guys suggest articles, things to talk about, what have you, questions. And this week, the sort of one we selected was by Neokiva, who asked, what service would you use from a cash shop in real life if such a thing existed and had all the staples of MMO cash shops? Name, gender, race change, recustomizations, etc. So what would you guys change about yourself if you could? If there was a real life shop that you could just walk to and say, hey, I want to be a female.
Is that
Maybe
what you
that's
would choose?
You would do.
Immediately I'm like, give me boobs.
That's the first thing that you jumped on there. So
Yeah, I could always pay to come back. You know, that's the beauty of a cash shop. You can flip flop back and forth as long as you have the money to do it. I don't know. That would be the cheapest gender change ever. Because technically you could do that now, but it doesn't cost what a cash shop costs.
Well, just like in MMOs, do I have to like go out and kill 6 kobolds to get like the money to go to this cash shop? Actually, it's a cash shop.
It's real life. You have to like go out and kill 6 accountants or something.
Oh man. Those are
horrible.
Those are
I
pretty
wouldn't use
boring
this shop.
to kill. Those are like the bores of the real life accountants.
Okay, 6 lawyers.
If I had to actually go kill people, I just would not use this
Lawyers
shop.
would be the vampire equivalent. Accountants would be the boar equivalent of MMOs. So if you just gotta get 6 boar pelts, you get 6 accountant pelts.
I don't know. I don't actually think I would make too much use of that shop, to be honest with you.
You wouldn't change your race to something? Like, what would you, like, if you could be any race, let's say fantasy races exist in real life, what race would you be? Would you be a human?
Well, I don't know.
That's pretty boring.
Depends on if they're temporary or not. I mean, I guess you could always go back and just change back at any particular point. I don't know. I guess my answer is not going to be all that interesting because I haven't really thought about this all that much, so I just don't have anything for it right now.
I would go and get new hair. I'd get
hair?
spiky purple mohawk or something.
Oh, you could do that now. See, that's the thing.
No, but you gotta. There's a little bit of real. I mean, my hair. I don't have that much. So I can't make it that. I'm talking like a big.
Extensions. No.
I'm talking. Yeah.
I don't know how good that would look on you. I want to take a picture of you in Photoshop, purple spiky hair now. Like, give me a side profile, and I'll do that.
Maybe I'd change my race, become a Tauren.
See, I think that's really like one of the only things that is really cool, or that you could do with the cap shop that you can't already do in real life. You can already change your name in real life. You can already change your gender in real life, which arguably mimics online very similarly, because even if you change...
It does cost a lot of money.
It does. It costs a lot of money, and if you change from a male to a female, technically, you're still somewhat a male. I mean, that gets into a whole other discussion, but... You know, if you change from a female to a male, or a male to a female in a video game, at the keyboard you're still a male. But yeah, that gets into a little bit of gray discussion that doesn't really encompass free-to-play MMO gaming. So I'm gonna go ahead and say race, just because I'm gonna say, yeah, race. I'm gonna say race. I don't know. Sometimes I thought I said gender for a second, but race.
Sometimes these cash shops offer some like really cool trinkets and items and cool things that you can get, like fun
but
things.
Again, that's what you can do in real life. You can buy cool stuff with money. So it's like.
Although
I will say I was in a mall just last week, and they had a suit of armor in display in one of the shops. So maybe that's what I would do: is use the cash off to buy some gear. And
then someone's gonna be like, "Oh, look at him! He paid to win. He bought some purple gear."
I didn't earn that armor.
It's totally pay to win. I don't know. I kind of think that I would want to buy a trinket that turned me into like a rabbit or something like that. You know, like how you can buy those items that change your cosmetic look. Like in World of Warcraft, you could buy stuff that changed you into like a pirate or like a skeleton and stuff like that.
You just put on a costume.
That's a Halloween show.
Yeah, but those were actual skeletons. Like you were actually a skeleton when you did that.
Man, as long as that was temporary, you could have some fun with that.
Dude, that would be fun. I would love to turn into random, like an inanimate object and just like sit there and wait for someone to come by and like scare them or something like that. Like
turn into an inanimate object.
I would have so much fun with that. That would be great.
I would just go for skeleton. I mean, you could do like so much cool
skeleton.
You pop out of trash cans and stuff.
He's like, ah. All right, so that's the member topic for this week. Obviously, it's more like real life member topic, but if you guys have any other sort of questions that you have for us or topics that you would like us to discuss, whether they be strange or not, feel free to leave them in the comments below or send them to my email at michael@mmobomb.com. Please email me. I am lonely. I always could use a good conversation. I know, come on. But so that is going to wrap up this member topic. Now, I do want to mention a couple of good articles to check out on MMOBomb.com. One of them by the lovely Jason Winter, which deals with lockboxes, loot for a price. Where Jason, you can pimp your own article. What is your article about?
It's about lockboxes. Are they loot for a price?
Yeah. Is it good to buy lockboxes and actually spend money on them? That's essentially
that's the question I pose. Is it? Are they just It's like buying a random loot. Are they just a lottery, or are they something that you actually like in the game?
Exactly. And then you also have a good article which actually touches on what we just discussed, dealing with Microsoft and Xbox Live, titled Microsoft Behind the Free-to-Play Gaming Curve. So definitely check those out. It's been a little bit light with free-to-play games lately. That typically is what happens around this time. We're sort of in the Oasis period, or sort of the desert period, or whatever you want to call it, in between major releases. So we just had sort of like the major releases in springtime. We have a couple of them during summer, but most of them will come much towards the end of the year and what have you. But there'll be some coming up. I do have a couple games in mind, so be on the lookout for those. Now, moving on to the weekly bombs. This is, of course, where we talk about what has been on our mind, if we want to give a da-bomb or an A-bomb to something. I'm going to go ahead and give a da-bomb to Naughty Dog in The Last of Us. Yes, this is like completely not free-to-play related, and it's not even on PC, but I have to give a da-bomb to it because it was one of the best single-player third-person experiences that I've ever had in a game in I don't know how long. It was very narrative-driven. There was a lot of great acting. It was some of the best acting I've ever seen in a game. And it was really well done, and I was actually incredibly impressed with the graphic fidelity on the PS3, a system that's nearing 10 years of age. It looked as good as a lot of games that I played on PC that are meant for PC. So definitely going to give a da-bomb there for Naughty Dog. I played your game since Crash Bandicoot. That's one of the first games I ever did play, so I'm glad Naughty Dog is still around, giving us a lot of good games to enjoy. Whether you're a free-to-play gamer or not, it's just nice to have options like that. So, David, because you're the guest here, I'm going to go ahead and let you do your weekly bomb next.
Well, if I have to... Actually, it's not free-to-play related necessarily, but it is MLG related, which actually just happened. It happened this weekend. I'm going to give a da-bomb to Day 9, because
Really?
I was watching the stream, and Day 9 just does so many absolutely amazing things for his fans that nobody else really does in the gaming community as a whole. This guy's really popular, and he's actually a really, really good person, as is. There was someone in the crowd during one of the StarCraft matches, or before one of the StarCraft matches, who had a sign. He was holding up a sign, because sometimes the cameraman will pan around to the crowd and read all the signs that people draw or write or whatever. And this one guy was holding up a sign saying, "Day 9, will you complete my mouse pad?" He had a mouse pad that he had a bunch of esports celebrities signing, and Day 9 had not signed that yet. He was trying to get him to sign it. "Day 9, will you complete my mouse pad?" And then he put a little a little sad face on it. And Day 9 spots this, and he says, on the mic into the crowd and everything, says, "If you change that to a smiley face, I will complete your mouse pad." And then they move on a little bit. A little bit of time passes. The cameraman catches that guy a second time a little bit later, and the guy has scratched out the sad face and changes it to a smiley face. And so Day 9 actually invites that guy to come up on the MLG stage with him. And the guy comes up and brings his mouse pad, and he wants Day 9 to sign the centerpiece of it. And Day 9 signs it right there, live, on stage, MLG with this guy. He signs it right there, and the guy is so overwhelmed by this that the guy gives Day 9 a hug and nearly knocks him out of his chair. And Day 9 takes it all in stride, treats the guy real well. The guy leaves the stage perfectly happy, probably leaves that MLG. The guy's probably still got a smile on his face about the entire thing. He's got to be completely elated. He's got to love it. And Day 9 just does this kind of stuff for people, and that is who I want to give this particular da-bomb to, because he is just an amazing gentleman. So props to you, Day 9. Mad props.
Wow. I'm a big fan of Day 9 as well. I love his Fun Day Monday stuff. So
Yeah, I caught that live. I caught him inviting that guy on stage live, and that was crazy. I loved it.
It's good to see people who are involved in YouTube and esports, acknowledging the fans, acknowledging the people who sort of pushed them or propelled them to that point. I try to do that as well with fans, and I think, David, you do that as well on your YouTube. So I have to say, I would have to throw that back at you and say da-bomb to you as well, because
man, thanks. I appreciate it.
I know your fans are big. You've got a lot of fans that are really into you, and I know that you do take your time and definitely answer some of the questions that people do with you as well. So I'm going to give an extra da-bomb to you, David. Now, Jason, what do you have for us today?
Wow, I'm going to have to break up your little love fest here, everybody.
Oh, man. Me and David go way back, man. We're old bros.
Again, Pride Weekend. You guys do what you do. It's not my concern. Anyway, I also have sort of an MLG-related thing, but it's going to be an A-bomb to Twitch for their rather crappy performance today because, of course, there was the MLG League of Legends Spring Championships.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, a lot of other stuff has been lagging, and chat hasn't been too bad, surprisingly, even though it was like kind of crappy earlier this week, and you never know with Twitch chat if it's going to come up good or not. So I just have to give an A-bomb to their performance in general. Especially when you got something like the MLG League of Legends Spring Championships, you got to know that that's going to just batter your service to hell and back. So be a little better prepared for it. That's just all I would say.
Indeed. All right, guys. So that's our weekly bombs here now. There was actually no member bombs, and I was deeply saddened by this. In fact, I had to go drink 2 full bottles of whiskey just to drown my sorrows in the fact that there was no member bombs. Jason, he drank his own whiskey bottle because that's Jason's drink of choice. That's what I imagined Jason drinking.
Yeah. I just pound it back shot after shot.
David's over there in the corner just getting those shots of vodka and just one after another.
I'm probably while you guys are doing that, I was probably just drinking tea.
Tea? With
yeah,
vodka.
that's what I do, man. I love tea. Tea's amazing.
Spiked tea. You have to have something in your system. David, you're way too calm all the time. Like, you're just like chill, and you don't. I wonder what you would be like drunk. I don't know. We'll have to see one day. I want to have to come down to Texas there. But all right, so no member bombs. Hopefully you guys make that up for me. I don't want to drink myself into a stupor because of the fact that I'm lacking those. But let's go ahead then and move on to the question of the week. So last week's question of the week was, do you have any suggestions as to what we should do with the Free to Play podcast? Of course, last week we sort of presented our new format, dealing with the member topics and what you thought of that. And then we asked if there was anything else you wanted to add to that. And Air Splash, being a bro, total bro as he always is, he says, well, we think that even though this site is built, we as in he and his friends, we think that even though the site is built for and by the fans, that there should be more member guests on the show a little more often. Now, I know that it's hard to make everyone's schedule match up, but this would be nice. It's completely up to the free-to-play cast. Shout out to MMOBomb community from Cerebral Hunter, I'm a Midget, Waffle Reaper, and myself. Man, those are some good names. Cerebral Hunter, I'm a Midget.
No, I'm pretty sure that's Super Midget.
I like to put I'm a Midget. I like to think that he means I'm a midget.
Like, I think he was going for Super Midget.
I think he's going for super too. But
super,
yeah, it's definitely Super Midget.
I don't know. Okay,
but
it's super
I'm a Midget sounds like a cool name for like a halfling or a dwarf.
That's what that is totally a good name. I read that wrong, but
if Tyrion Lannister ever got into rap, that's how he would start.
Sup, I'm a midget. My name is Tyrion Lannister.
Sup, I'm a midget.
Yeah, you can just imagine him like doing the gang signs. Oh man.
Yep.
Game of Thrones. All right, Waffle Reaper, you have a good name too. So yeah, of course we have David on today, which was one of those things. So hopefully we can have more people in the future. I'm going to outreach to more individuals and try to get in some different opinions and what have you. I would like to have more guests from the actual community themselves. But keep in mind when you petition me by email, michael@mmobomb.com, that's where you can actually contact me and I will reply to you if you want to be actually on the show. Just keep in mind that we do have sort of a semi-requirement of you have to have a not crap mic. You have to have like an okay mic, and what that means is not a lot of background noise, and there can't be like a dog and a baby wailing in the background or what have you. We have some quality, preferences. Essentially, we're not the most professional people in town, but we do have a bar if it is set a little bit low. But yeah, so that is sort of the only requirements we really have. You have to be able to speak English, and you have to have a mic that doesn't sound like you're drowning it in the toilet. Otherwise, feel free to contact me again, michael@mmobomb.com, and we'll try to get you guys on the show. So this week's question of the week then is, it kind of goes back to the whole PvP thing we were talking about at the beginning. Do you prefer smaller open world PvP? That also includes battleground PvP, smaller open world PvP as in like skirmishes, etc. Or do you prefer more objective based battlegrounds with larger teams? So I'm talking 20 on 20, 30 on 30, 40 on 40, even maybe 50 on 50. Guild Wars 2, that style of PvP where it's like large but still sort of focused a bit, that's a toss-up. What you would actually call that? It's sort of open world, but again, it's also a objective battleground based. But yeah, what do you prefer? Tell us what style of PvP you prefer. Leave us in the comments below. Send it to me in an email, michael@mmobomb.com, or leave it in the comments on mmobomb.com directly. Hope you guys have enjoyed this show today. David, thanks for coming on. This is the part where I take a back seat and you guys pimp out whatever you want, your Twitter, your YouTube page, your Instagram, your Facebook, what have you. David, since you're the guest, go ahead first. What avenues can people follow you on?
Well, I've got my YouTube channel. I'm pretty sure there will be a link to that in the video description. DavidR64YT is what you want to look for if you're going to look me up on YouTube. And I've got my Twitter account, which is twitter.com/DavidAngel64. And you can find a link to that from my YouTube channel page, so you don't need to worry about typing that in or whatever. Just go to my YouTube channel and then you find a link to it right there. And of course, I do have a blog there. There's a link to the blog in my YouTube channel as well there too. So if you want to do any of that kind of following, that's a good place to do it. My Twitter is probably the best place to catch me because I update there most frequently when I'm uploading a video or just random thoughts or what have you. So that's probably the one that you're going to want to keep the most track of if you're going to keep track of any one of them in particular, because that one also keeps track of my YouTube. So there's that. Aside from that, thanks a lot for having me. It's been a real blast.
It was great having you. I'm glad that we had so many opposing opinions and discussion points. For those that don't know, David is a little bit of a celebrity on YouTube. He's been around for quite some time and is nearing 200,000 subscribers. So kudos to you, my good sir.
Thank you.
He'll have 200,006 after this, maybe.
I know, that's true. That's true.
Well,
We could have
we'll see.
couple more people. Now, Jason, I am having a premonition. I think I know what you're going to say.
I'm going to say that you can follow me on Twitter @WinterInformal, and you can also follow me streaming on Twitch TV/JasonWinter.
It was exactly that. Man, I need to start a business of answering phone calls and telling people their future. I myself, my Twitter is @Spunkify. I've started to try to use it a little bit more, although I'm not very good at tweeting. I end up tweeting random crap. So if you want,
that's what Twitter is for. Everybody tweets random crap.
I know, but I feel like as a gaming journal, I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm a gaming journalist. I'm more of like a gamer discussioner, I guess. I don't know. A journalist, I feel like I'm not up to the quality of a journalist, but you can follow me on @Spunkify. We can talk a little bit about games. We can talk a little bit about what I'm doing during the day, like folding laundry or what have you. Whatever, it doesn't matter. And sometimes I stream for MMOBomb at twitch.tv/MMOBomb. And yeah, I have other outlets, many outlets, but those are the ones I'm focusing on right now. And if those change in the future, I will let you guys know. I will update you in a future podcast. This has been Free to Play episode number 74. I've been Spunkify. David, Jason, thanks for coming. And we'll see you guys next time. Spunkify out.